Today is December 4th, 2023. I live in Northeast Indiana, gardening zone 6B. It's 38 degrees outside, and I just finished planting a small part of my garden for spring of 2024. Now, this isn't anything brand new or unknown. It's a method of gardening known as winter sowing, which is exactly what it sounds like, sowing in the winter or in the cold. And there are a couple different styles and stuff to it, but that's the basis of winter sowing. Now, if I've known about this method for years, why am I just now trying it? Great question. The entire foundation of how I do stuff and plan on doing things here in my garden is going to be based off of how God, Jehovah, the creator, has demonstrated in nature, and also how he describes what it should look like in his word. And he has a ton of stuff to say just about growth and gardening and nature, being a gardener. Tons and tons of stuff to say about it. And since you can't do any better than what God has done, well, it would be wise to do like he says and as he shows. Are you following me? You following me? Okay, so I was listening to someone speak on Isaiah chapter 55. I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to show you what stood out to me. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. For as the rain cometh down and the snow from heaven, and returneth not thither, but watereth the earth, and maketh it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. Notice how it didn't just say, as the rain come down from heaven and waters the earth, that it may bring forth and bud. It says the rain and the snow. So I was like, the snow? The snow. So he leads me to go outside, and I'm like, okay. So I'm walking around outside, looking around, and he's like, no, when does stuff go to seed and drop their seed? And I'm like, at the end of the growing season, like in fall. Oh, and then boom, Isaiah 55 popped back in my head, and the rain and the snow bringing it, water in the earth and making it bring forth and bud pops back into my head. And I'm like, oh, that's when you do your planting too. That's when you do your sowing. You do it in fall, the seed comes down, the rain comes over it in the fall, then the snow falls over it in the winter, and more rain in the spring, and then the snow melts and the water's all, and I'm like, oh, all right, okay. And then all these past experiences that I've had gardening started popping back up in my head about how, plants like tomatoes or zucchini or whatever, I didn't clean up entirely and left some of the fruit and seeds still out there. And then come the following spring, they would just be everywhere. Anyone who has grown tomatoes knows that if you leave a couple tomatoes on the ground, those things will volunteer and can turn into weeds very, very quickly. And also those years, I would leave some of the volunteers, and I would always notice how much better the volunteers were doing than the same variety that I would either start or direct sow in the spring. Seeds falling, going through a cold period, and then coming out of it is something called cold stratification. And you can look and read at a bunch of stuff that says only certain seeds need to be cold stratified, some don't need to be, which is true. But again, I've noticed that seeds that don't need to be cold stratified in the past have done better going through a cold period and coming out of it than those that I direct sowed in the spring. Which makes sense, because if that seed is strong enough to make it through the fall and through the winter and through the early spring without rotting, it's probably going to be a pretty strong seed. I've had tomatoes, again, when they volunteered that I left, there would be snow on the ground still, very cold temperatures, and as the snow is melting slowly, you will see those volunteer tomatoes poking right up through the snow, like unfazed. So I'm going to be experimenting with it intentionally this year for the first time. I have a 4-foot by 40-foot bed that I planted them into, and I planted carrots, some scarlet nantes carrot, I don't really know how to pronounce it. planted some of those. I planted some beets, a beet mix actually. There's some short top early wonder beets and touchstone gold beets, I believe, that I mixed together. Planted a long row of those, and then I also planted a mix of dazzling blue kale and Baltic Rise purple kale. And I also did a row of lettuce mix and spinach as well. The lettuce mix and spinach I just sprinkled over the surface of the soil, and then the other three things that I planted I direct seeded actually with the Jang seeder about a ½ inch deep or so, somewhere around there. And this is my hypothesis on what's going to happen. Now, believe it or not, I don't think a majority of the seeds that I planted are going to come through next year, are going to sprout and grow. And the reason I don't believe that is because not every single seed is very strong seed. And none of this seed that I got is exactly adapted for my specific growing area. Well, at least it wasn't grown here. Since it wasn't grown here, it's not used to these conditions, so most of that seed won't make it. But there will be some strong seed in there that does make it through. And of that strong seed that does make it through, I'll wait and I'll see as the season progresses to see which of those plants grows to be the biggest and the healthiest. I'll let them go to seed, and then I'll save that seed. And then after I save that seed, next year, and then whatever biennial plants I have the year after that, I will do the same thing with that seed. And that is when I expect to see a lot stronger and higher germination rates, because I saved that strong seed that made it through, and now that seed is adapted to the conditions that I have here in my specific growing zone and in my specific location. If you've watched any of my other videos, can you tell that I like to experiment? And even more so than experimenting, I love seeing what God has to say about something, then actually doing the thing that he said, and then watching it work and happen real time. That's what I love more than anything. Anyway, I'm excited. I can't wait until spring to see how my hypothesis turns out. And I can't wait until fall in the year after to see how the entirety of my hypothesis works out. I also can't wait to see how my other experiments are gonna do come spring and throughout the year next year. I can't wait to try out a bunch of other experiments. I'm very excited for next year and the coming years. Like they are really getting me very, very amped up. I mean, I feel good about it for real. So I thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for hanging around and joining me on this journey and checking out these experiments with me. I don't just do these for me. I also do them for you to see, for you to go out and try and can learn right along with me. Also learn patience with me if you're as excited about these experiments as I am. But again, thank you. I appreciate you. Till next time, I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.